board. And I think what that meant was that people didn't want to say that they were supporting Trump, just as they didn't want to say that they were supporting Brexit. And that really explains the shock that a lot of people are seeing tonight. But I think the deeper point, the real similarity that matters most, is in the underlying reason for the vote. And that is what's actually happened in the real lives of millions of people, thanks to globalization and technology and all these changes, which is that basically a lot of people have really suffered. I think for me, the most explanatory data point in this whole election here in America was published by the Census Bureau about a month or so ago, and it was the income data. And what it showed was that the median income in America, which means the midpoint of all incomes, is lower today than in 1999. What that means in plain English is that half of all Americans earn less today than 17 years ago. They've had 8 years of Bush, 8 years of Obama, and their incomes are down. And it's no wonder that they look to someone, anyone, to try and make a difference in their lives.
Steve, it's Bret Baier. You know, we talked back at the conventions, and you said there's a possibility that this is brewing. Donald Trump used that on the campaign trail and said this was going to be Brexit plus, plus, plus. Is it? And what about the world reaction? When we saw Brexit, they said everything is going to collapse originally. That is what we're starting to hear of concern around the world. What do you think of that?
Well, here I think there's a big difference with Brexit, and a really positive one for our viewers tonight and for America, which is that this is an actual election where you have a candidate standing there on a platform with actual policies that they want to implement if they win. With Brexit, there is a lot of uncertainty, as we're seeing being played out now, in terms of what this vote actually meant. Here, the likely outcome, if everything goes as we're seeing tonight, is that you have a Republican in the White House, a Republican control of both parts of Congress. And that means that you'll actually be able to see the implementation of a real economic agenda that I think, despite the overnight jitters that you might see in the markets, over time will reassure the business community and the financial community that at last we might get some serious economic growth going that will benefit those people that have been left behind and business generally. So I think that in the end, despite what you might see in the immediate short term, this is going to be very positive.
And so you think it's going to that people will be reassured as the days and weeks pass in a way that they might not be tomorrow. Obviously, half the country is going to be disappointed here either way, but this has been a particularly brutal battle between these two candidates, and people are going to be licking the wounds for a while now.
Yeah, Megan, I thought you captured it really well earlier when you were talking about this, and you were saying, yeah, half the people are going to be cheering, but the other half are going to be thinking this guy who they see as a monster, someone who's dangerous and evil, is now going to be in charge of leading the country. And of course, there's going to need to be some adjustment to that, and I think it's incredibly important. You know, we'll see perhaps this evening how Trump actually responds to this moment. I think he's got a huge responsibility to do so in a way that starts to reassure those people that see him in the terms that you described as someone who really can not just get the economy going and do the specific policy things that he talked about, but really bring the country together at a time when it's going to be really anxious.
Steve Hilton in San Francisco. Steve, thank you very much for your perspective.
We continue to wait results in several states right now, including Michigan, Minnesota, New Hampshire, Arizona, Maine, Pennsylvania, and Alaska. A lot of electoral votes outstanding, but a very, very narrow path available for her right now.
Down ballot, Maine and Michigan tonight both approved minimum wage increases. And the economic impact, we talked about the markets, but gold is up more than 4% tonight, just so that everybody knows that.
And everyone's getting their mesothelioma medicine?
And the Dow is down more than 700.
Internal joke.
And I think the S&P 500 halted at 5% down, as you mentioned before. Let's bring back our panel. Dana, Juan, Monica, Chris, Carl, Britt, and Chris. Okay, Monica, your perspective on this.
I think what we're seeing unfold tonight is the most astonishing political story of our lifetimes. If you think about it this way, Donald Trump, who has never done this before, the ultimate outsider, essentially had very little money relative to Mrs. Clinton, who had about $2 billion at her disposal for this campaign, had an essentially skeletal campaign to this day, is pulling the entire thing off. We have never seen anything like this before, certainly in recent political history and maybe ever in the history of the Republic. And I think what it shows is the power of the people, that both the Republican conservative base as well as independents, disaffected Democrats, they have taken a look at the bipartisan ruling class and they have said, we've had it with all of y'all, and we're going to try something completely different.
By the way, the cheers you hear are the actual boards we're putting up as you're talking, and they have the vote totals underneath. And,
Much as they love Monica.
Right. You know, Michigan, 17, oh, there it goes. But basically, Donald Trump leading in Michigan,
Yep.
leading in Pennsylvania, and leading in New Hampshire.